Hello everyone and welcome to this episode 6 of season 6 of Andy's Shed Live for this Sunday the 1st of September 2019. It's just a fairly quick show for you here today. I'm just back from Heege Windmill. I've been out all day with the stationary engine, but we wanted to do this episode because one of our viewers has been in touch this week. Now he wants to remain anonymous for reasons which may become apparent as this goes on, but basically this guy got in touch with us because he'd bought a couple of old telephones and he watches the show pretty much most weeks, I think, and he sent me a couple of photos of the telephones that he bought as original GPO telephones from the 1960s, and I looked at them and thought, they look nice, but they don't look quite right. So I inquired with him and found out where he got them from, and I found a website selling telephones, and it turns out that they're using a lot of non-standard reproduction, or what I would go as far as to call fake parts, because to me a reproduction part is a part that is exactly the same as the original part was, but has just been made at a later date, maybe by a different company. A fake part is something that basically looks the same but is not actually the same, and there are quite a few fake parts, particularly on 706 telephones. So I wanted to go over that today with you, and I think the way to do that is to show you one of my 706s, and this is the only one that I've got with any fake parts on it. So let's have a little look at this, shall we, and we'll see if you can spot where the fakery is going on. So as you can see, here is a green 706 in its original condition, you would think. It has got a bit of a crack in the case that has been repaired at some point here. It's been repaired quite well, so I left it. But yeah, it's a green 706, and as you can tell, it's a kind of mid-1960s 706 because it's got the white chevrons in the dial plate there, and it's got the coloured finger wheel. Okay, so it's all good. Well, it's not, because the area of fakery with these phones tends to be in the dials, which is why I've got all these pieces here, because the finger wheel on this is a fake, and the centre, what they call the opal here, this plastic bit in the centre that normally has the number card inside it, that is not correct for a 706 phone. Now I'll show you a correct one. Here's a correct finger wheel. Now this one has gone discoloured over the years. You can see how it's faded, and if you look there, how that is a dark colour there, that's because that was under the finger stop here for many years when it was fitted to a phone. Yeah, you see that? Well, that was under there. But if you look on the back, you'll see it's painted on the back the correct green colour, and that's the key to it. You see how this is a very thin material? Well, it's like a thin sort of acetated type stuff, and what they used to do was make these clear and then paint them on the back whatever colour they were making them for the phone. So making a green one, you paint it green on the back. You're making a Concord blue one, you paint it blue on the back, and you can see it's actually matte paint on the back of there, but of course it's shiny on the front because it's on the back of the plastic. So I've got all kinds of different ones of these. That is a ivory one. You see how that's an ivory, and I've got quite a few of these. There's a black one, you see, and they're all the same. Yeah, and you'll also note this metal bit in the middle. It's brass on the back, and it's got this spring steel, I think it's stainless steel, on the front with this little springy bit here, because that's what pushes your nail centre out, your opal. The only one that I've got that is weird, and here's a yellow one that I've got that's been hot at some point, and you'll see that one is a bit deformed because it's been sort of part melted at some point. But I've kept it just to sort of show what they should be like. And it's a shame that, because they fade out as well. That would be a nice one if it wasn't for the fact it was melted. But so I've got all these, and these are all original. But there is one in here that's a bit strange, because it's this green one here. This one. And this one's a bit odd. If I switch back to the camera that you can see it under, this one's a bit odd because it's got the thing there that it should have, but on the back you see it's thicker and it's not painted. It's actually made out of solid coloured plastic, that one, but it has got this metal piece. So I don't know if this is an original one of a later design, or if it's a very good replica that's included the metal parts that it should have. Now, not all replicas are that good, and there's a bad one fitted to this phone, because if you look in here you'll see there's no dial label in there, but you'll see no metal inside there. That isn't that. It's just the plastic. So let's take this off and have a look. Now normally you get a little sucker on these to get them out, but this one is easy to get out. And if this was a genuine 706 one, we would put a screwdriver under there, which would then go under this little springy bit of metal here, and it would push that spring up like that. Can you see me doing that there? And that would push out a solid dial opal like that. So your solid opal would sit in there like that, and you would put your thing under there, your screwdriver, twist like that, and that would push it out like that, you see. Okay, that's what would normally happen, but this is not a solid opal. If I pull it out again, oh, don't normally pull them out like that because you'll damage them, but this one is damaged already, so I could just do it like that for speed. But this one, and you can see, is not solid. It's got that kind of rim around it, and that's because this is the type that you would normally find in a 746 phone, not in a 706 with an original type dial. Because a 746, of course, would have a clear finger wheel, a one-piece finger wheel that's all clear. And this would fit in the middle, and you have to pull it out by putting a sucker on there, or a piece of tape or something, a piece of adhesive tape, and pulling it off, and then that pulls it out. So this isn't correct, and the reason it's not correct is because a few years ago somebody started remanufacturing telephone parts, but they seem to have got the moulds and the tooling to remanufacture 746 parts, not 706 parts. And of course in the area of the dial there are things that are different, like these are different. That's a 7461 and that's a 7061. And again, if I show you under here, you'll see this here, this one is the 706, this is the 746. So you've got the 706 on the left, 746 on the right, and I don't know if you can see the difference, if it shows up on camera, but this one has got that ridge around it, and this other one is actually solid. It's a really thick piece of plastic on the 706. But this 746 one, they will fit in one of these 706 proper dials, but you can't flick them out so easily because you need them to be solid on the back. So this little flicker thing's got something to press against. So we need to change that dial opal. So that's the one we're going to put in, which is a solid one. Right, so let's take this out, and you can see there's no metal in here because this is actually made, probably, I'm guessing, using the moulds that would have made the clear 746 dials originally, but they've thought, oh, we'll put coloured plastic in and we'll try and remanufacture 706 dials, and you can see it's just totally solid plastic. It's not the same at all. If I show you one that I think might be a good replica, or it might be an original later version or something, you can see the difference. Alright, here's the one that I think might be the later version, and here's a black original, and you can see how thin this is, where it's sort of been moulded. I don't know if you can see that, but this one is just solid. So what we're going to do is we're going to fit a nice green one. So we're going to take that off, and we're going to fit this nice green one that we've got here. Now, although it is faded a bit, I'd still rather have the original proper one on, even though it's faded a bit, because it keeps the originality of the phone, and originality on these things is everything. And if you look at these, you'll notice on the back here there's one hole. You can see one single hole just there, yeah, and that hole corresponds to that one pin on there, on that early dial 21. Okay, but this replica one has two holes because later versions of dial 21 and the dials that followed them, this bit in the middle here was plastic, and because it was plastic and weaker, it had two pins. So there you have it. That's what makes me think that's wrong. So we're going to put this one on. It goes that way up. There it is. There's the screw. That can go in there, and then we're going to put this solid dial opal on, and there you go. All it needs now is a dial label making to go in the middle there, and we'll have done it. So this is, I wouldn't even call it a replica because it's not correct. This I would call a fake. So this won't be getting fitted to any more of my phones. So I just wanted to show you that, because there are people out there selling what look like beautifully restored phones rather, with parts that look like this on them, and you can kind of tell, because when you look at an original dial, and I'll show you this one because it's a light colour, you can kind of tell if you put this under the other camera again. If there was a dial label in there, you won't be able to see if there was metal in the back of there or not, obviously. But look at the shape around the finger holes, and on these, because they are kind of, I guess, made out of a flat sheet and then it's kind of warmed up and pressed in a mould to make it the shape it is, the edges to the holes that you put your finger in are kind of rounded because it's a flat sheet that's been pressed round something. And on these replica ones, this is quite a good replica, but they're normally much sharper edges to these holes, and that is normally how you can tell, and that's how I could tell with our viewers' phones, because the edges to the holes were too sharp, too well defined. They should have been more rounded over like this, and that's how I did it. That's how I spotted the problem. But the problem isn't just with finger wheels, it's with all kinds of parts, and it happens with finger plates as well, which is the bit in the back of the dial. Now again, genuine ones of these, like this one, are actually clear plastic and are painted on the back. So you start with a piece of clear plastic, you first print or paint the chevrons on, and then you print or paint green or whatever colour on over the top of them. And the reason it's always done on the back is that when you're using this over years and years and years and you're putting your finger in there, if it was painted on the front or printed on the front, screen printed or whatever, eventually the printing would rub off, wouldn't it? And the GPO, remember, used to rent out their phones. You didn't buy your phone, you used to rent it. So if things started to rub off, if all the numbers started to rub off so you couldn't tell what number you were down that, they had to send a man out who had to replace it or replace the parts and that cost the GPO money. So they would never have sanctioned anything with the printing on the face, because it wouldn't have been hard enough wearing, and they would have had to send engineers out to sort out problems with it. So they would never have sanctioned that. They would want their stuff to be hard wearing, so it should all be printed on the back. But there are modern versions of these out there that are just a coloured piece of plastic, not a clear piece of plastic, a coloured piece of plastic, that are just printed where the chevrons are just printed on the front. And of course they are going to wear off in time. And there's also a problem with these as well, what I call the dial bezels, because again, on a genuine 706 and on some very early 746s, because very early 746s up to about 1971 had these alphanumeric surrounds as well. A lot of people say 746s never had them, but they did. The very early ones definitely did have them. But the genuine surrounds are always clear and they are always flat. They're clear, again, painted on the back, so the numbers and letters are painted on in reverse first, or printed maybe, and then the green is put on over the top to make the background. Then you look at it from the other side, And again, you see, you can't scratch it off because it's on the back. Now, the modern version of these uses a bezel from a later, more common 746, and it is just plastic, just coloured plastic, and again printed on the front, and again they wear off. They look the same initially, but they do wear off. So again, it's wrong. And also with these are just a flat piece of plastic with tiny little grooves cut out on the inner edge at various points, and then this is held in place by inside of the phone case there is a metal ring that fits in the dial aperture, and so it fits sort of on the back of here where this is. There's a metal ring about the same size that fits on the back, and then it's got like little claws that come out through the dial aperture and grab onto the very edge of this on the inside here, and you'll not see them because they're so small. I mean, there's one there, but I'm sure you can't see it because it's so small, and it only very grabs onto the edge by a fraction of a millimetre, and that's what holds it together. So it's a flat piece of clear plastic, this painted and then held on by a metal ring on the back. Now on later 746 phones it's not done that way. On later 746s the actual dial bezel is a piece of ordinary coloured plastic, but it's got 4 pegs on the back of it that go into the dial aperture in a certain location. Then you just turn it around a bit and it locks into position with these 4 shaped pegs on the back. The modern version of this is the 746 one with the 4 pegs on the back, so it doesn't use the metal locking ring that should be on the back, but it's a 746 part that's been made to look like a 706 part, but it isn't. But people are using these parts, these incorrect parts, to restore 706s, and it's wrong. It's just not right. And you can pay 60, 70, 80, I've seen them at over £100, these restored phones. They look nice and shiny, but be careful, because if they're using these non-original parts, you are not getting an original phone. And if you care about originality the way that I do, then you won't touch them with a barge pole. Right, not all restorers use them, it has to be said, but some do. And I guess if you've got a phone, if you've got a green phone and you've got no finger wheel on it, the finger wheel's completely broken or something, and the only thing you can get is one of these, you are going to use it, aren't you? And okay, fair enough. But it's not original anymore. If you want it original, you should look for one of these that is kind of hollow on the back and has got brass in the middle on that side, stainless steel in the middle on that side, held together with 3 little screws, and it's got that springy bit so you can pop a screwdriver under the side. That's what you should be looking for, not one of these. And you can buy these brand new from the factory today. Okay, so I just wanted to pass that on to you to explain about that. While I'm here as well, a thing about these dial plates, you can see I've got different coloured ones here, but this is an interesting one that I want to tell you about, and this is an interesting one I want to tell you about. Now, originally when the 706s came out, the dial plates were blank. They did not have these little arrows on them. So originally they were like this. They were originally blank like that. Now whether they were originally cast out of coloured plastic, or whether they were clear and painted on the back, I don't know. This is actually one that is just solid black plastic. I've dropped one. Bear with me 1 second. Where's that gone? I'll find it later. But originally, when they came out, they were like this. But that's not entirely the case, because some people say that they had these on originally. Well, that's not entirely the case either, because these are what I call 3D chevrons, and they're kind of a 3D effect, and the way they get the 3D effect with them is by basically cutting away the plastic on the back. Can you see that? These are indentations on the back, and then they paint the back silver, and that is how you're clear, because that's perfectly smooth on that side. On the front it's perfectly smooth, but it's got these standing out arrows on it, and that's how they do it. They cut away, or it's probably done in the moulding, I guess, the arrows on the back of there, then paint the back of the whole thing silver, and then there you have it, and the arrows are there on the front. But I've never seen this fitted to a GPO phone. What I have seen it fitted to is GPO 706 clones made by people like Ericsson, who also made 706s, but they made their own version too, and they often had these fitted. And later on, I think to make it easier, they use these, which is a similar thing, but it's silver with black arrows on it. But I think that is also an Ericsson or some other company that made clones of GPO phones. I don't think they were ever fitted to 700s. Remember, the very early 746s didn't have a dial 21 at all. They had a dial 12 like this, because the dial 21 wasn't available or was in short supply. They hadn't been manufacturing on long. So very early ones had a dial 12 like this, which you can tell by that curved finger stop there, as opposed to the finger stop with a straight side on it on a dial 21. Can you see the difference in that? And that's got one straight side and one side that's kind of got a notch out of it, but it's still straight lines, and this one is more curvy on both sides. Yeah. So very early 706s had a dial 12. Probably not, or some of them might have had the finger plate with the alphanumerics in, but the ones that I've actually seen had a finger plate that only had the numbers on. But that was very early one, sort of dating 1959, maybe 1960-ish. By about 1961, you'd gone on to the dial 21s with these, with the blank plates, and then by the time you got up to about 1963, I think it was, these came in with the chevrons on. And then in 1967, of course, it all changed again, because the 746 came along in 1967, and then that had the thing with the numbers on that we know today, and that they also got retrofitted, of course, the 746 type dials onto 706s as well. So it was all kind of a bit of a mishmash of different different dial types. But as far as I know, these with the 3D arrows were never fitted to GPO phones. I'm just sorting them all out in my hand. I've jumbled them all up in my hands. So yeah, so there you have it. That is the story of the dial plates, because I see people put weird combinations of things together and I think, oh, that's not quite right. So most 706s would have looked like that one now looks. Very early ones would possibly have had a dial 12 like that. Slightly later on, straight after the dial 12, would have had a blank finger plate like that, but obviously in case of a green phone it would have been a green one. Then later we had these, and then they went to the dials exactly like they are on a 706, on a 746 rather. So I hope we've managed to clear up some of the discrepancies for you. The thing about it is, be careful what you buy. If you are thinking of buying a phone fully restored off one of these websites, then some are better than others. Shop around. There are at least 3 or 4 websites that I know of where phones are for sale, allegedly restored. Some are restored better than others. It depends who you buy them off. But there is at least one where you can go and look at the phones as well. So it's always best, I think, if you're going to buy a phone, particularly if you're going to spend a lot of money buying one that's been fully restored, it's always best if you can go and look at it first, if you can go and pick it up and make sure it feels the right weight, and just generally check it out. If you've got any queries or questions about a specific phone, get in touch with me via the website, as our other viewer did. It's andyshed.corepress.net. If you get in touch with me on there and ask me, I will then send you an email where you can send pictures to. You can't send them using the contact us form on the website, but when you contact me through the contact us form, I can then send you an email address where you will be able to send pictures to get to me, and then I can tell you if I think a phone is completely original or not. But of course I never buy them restored anyway, because I restore them all myself. So I buy phones without any dial on at all, and that in a lot of cases, and I always try and buy original bits wherever I can. I always try and source original parts, and original parts do turn up. You do find people who are selling phones who've also got a pile of bits and pieces in an old margarine tub or something as well. You know, that does happen, so I do try and get things, and these are all bits that I've collected over the last few years as sparing. That about wraps it up for this week. We will be back hopefully next week with another episode, but until then, as I say, get in touch if you've got any queries about the phones, and just take a closer look at what you're buying. I hope we've enlightened you into some of the possible pitfalls of buying old GPO telephones. In the meantime, I've actually restored one of my phones here today, so always good when you get a little bit more originality back. From me, for now, have a great week ahead. And now remember, like and subscribe down there below, and if you're watching this on library, why not tip us a few library credits as well. I'll see you soon, but for now, bye.